Hi, I just wanted to take a few minutes to share with you some of my thoughts on the Pilates method. When I'm teaching my courses around the country, around the world, I ask my students, I say, listen, tell me, what is Pilates? And this is to groups of Pilates teachers, physical therapists, some doctors, and lay people. But even the teachers, I ask them, what are they? And they come up with answers like, well, it's exercise that strengthens your core, or it's exercise that gives you long, lean muscle. And I say, yeah, all very good answers, but to me, that's not the essence of Pilates. That's not what Pilates is. What Pilates is to me is a health and wellness system that uses exercise as a tool, as its tool. Basically what I mean by that is that Joe Pilates, when he created the Pilates system, he developed it as a mind-body-spirit system of exercise. His philosophy was that if you exercise the musculature, you would retrain the brain. And when you retrain the brain, both together, your body and mind working together, you would improve your spirit. So the mind, body, spirit. And he called it contrology, the study of control. And that's the way I look at it. And in my clinical practice, that's what I found to be the case. Because basically, as a chiropractor for 30 years, I was looking for a system to augment my patients' wellness so that I wouldn't have to see them over and over for the same things. A lot of times people say Pilates, that's a lot like yoga, isn't it? I say, no, absolutely two different things. Because Joe, in his infinite wisdom, what he developed was a method of retraining the body that ultimately accomplished his goals of that mind, body, spirit. Now, with the advances in science, we have a much better understanding of how it does it. And there are a number of factors that are involved. One of them is that he took global movements and broke them down into their component parts. And what he said is that if you practice his exercises with focus, intention, and precision, those rehearsed movements, they would improve the way your body functions. And I found that to be the case because my patients didn't need to see me as frequently for the same conditions. And that to me was huge. Yoga is great, don't get me wrong. Joe studied yoga. But what yoga focuses on is more the end range flexibility, and from a spiritual sense, the meditative aspects. For me, that wasn't what I was looking for. I was looking for neuromuscular re-education, neuromuscular retraining. And basically what Pilates will do, contrology or Pilates will do, is it will take your movements and put you in a foreign environment, because in a familiar environment, you bring in all your bad habits, right? But here, in a foreign environment, what happens is your body now relearns movement in a way that is clean, that is precise, that is focused. And in fact, the science now shows that Pilates doesn't even train the movements from your brain, because that's not where movements are stored. Movements are stored in your spinal cord. So what happens is your practicing of Pilates will retrain the complex reflexes that are located in your spinal cord, and your brain will choose those improved programs over the old ones, and you will function in a smoother, cleaner, more organized, less injurious way. And that's why when, in this case, you're applying it to cycling, you can push harder. Because, look, my job here isn't to train you. Okay, my job is to give you tools so that when you go out and train on your own or you work with your trainers, your body will be in a better position and less vulnerable to injury. So let's go over a couple of things. And thank you again for taking the time to watch this. I really do appreciate it. So first off, we now know that there's a whole neuromuscular re-education process that goes on. But then people say, well, I don't feel a burn. I want to feel it harder. Well, if you want to feel a burn, go to a weight room. Because what we do in Pilates is we put you through a low load, and don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with weight rooms, okay? It's important if you're going to be doing sport-specific weight training. That's essential. That's a good thing. But to go into the weight room and only do those exercises all the time can be detrimental to your body, to your joints. And I'll explain how. Because sometimes, well, in Pilates what we do is we do full range of motion, low load exercise. So that means that you're working your whole arm through the full range of motion. I do a whole course on the beneficial effects to joints and Pilates. In a nutshell, the only way your joint gets fed is by compression and release of the cartilage. That's how it gets fed. Now, if you go into a weight room and just grind away the cartilage in specific end range movements, or only one range because that's the range that your machine puts you through, you just tear apart that cartilage. And especially if you do it under high load. So what does Pilates do? It takes you through the full range. And now the essence of that is that we're feeding the joint all the way through its range of motion. Because what happens if you only are, say for example, a couch potato or something, where you don't do full range of motion exercise in general, full body, full range of motion exercise? What happens is your joints are only being compressed and released and fed in a very small region of the joint. So what does that mean? That means that now your joints on the periphery start to go into dormancy. Then they start to go into deterioration. It's called arthritis. Especially when you go out and you do something a little bit ballistic, and now you find that, I tore something. Okay? What Pilates will do is help nourish that joint so those kinds of things are reduced. I teach a whole course, a 3 and a 6 hour course in the neurology of Pilates. And there's a whole slew of benefits that the nervous system derives from the Pilates method in terms of how the brain communicates through the spinal cord to the end organs and musculature. There's somatovisceral reflexes that go from muscle to muscle, viscerosomatic reflexes. So that means that things that are your viscera, your internal organs, when there's problems, they can adversely affect the musculature. Also, when there's somatovisceral, you have musculature that can adversely affect the functionality of your organs. Pilates helps with all of that, helps to even it out. And I gotta tell you, if you go to any Pilates teacher in the world and you ask them, what is the one thing that every single Pilates student says after a class? They'll say, oh, my muscles feel so long and lean. Oh, my core feels so strong. What they say is, I'm glad I took this class. Because you know what? I feel better. Mind, body, spirit. There's a lot more to learn about it, but just thought you should know that that's what Pilates is really about. It's an exercise, it's a health and wellness system that uses exercise as its tool. Thanks so much for taking the time.